please see Ms. Kelly Roche over here. She has those, and we want to make sure that everybody will be able to hear. The Planning Commission is a volunteer committee appointed by City Council and serves as an advisory board in the planning and development of our city. We're not employees of the City of Clemson. At this time, I'm going to introduce our commissioners. Commissioner Cumbie, Commissioner Hyatt, Commissioner Rice, Commissioner Rowling, Commissioner Yoder, Commissioner Crowley. And I'm Herb Tyler, serving for the chair in this year. We have a quorum. At this time, I would like to introduce our staff. Assistant City Administrator Nathan Woods and Head of Planning Department, Art Holbrook, City Planner, Jacob Peabody, Zoning Administrator, and of course we could not do this without Ms. Kelly Roche, our Recording Secretary. I want to begin as we start this new year with the purpose of tonight and an overview of Planning Commission roles and types of meetings and what the agenda tonight is. So the process for things being brought before the Planning Commission, for a plan development, you have a workshop concept presentation, and then it either can move to an informal public meeting, or if there's feedback that's been given, a workshop can be recalled at any time. And then eventually it moves to formal presentation and vote. Tonight we have, because of substantial feedback and substantial changes, have called a workshop for Toll Brothers to come to because it was so substantial. At a workshop, what that means, the changes that we're seeing are just like a concept. It's a new concept, it's different. This is the first time that we've seen this, so during that part of the workshop, there'll be no public comments. At this session, I'd like to outline kind of the rules of procedures and statement of behaviors. We always want to treat everybody with honor, dignity, respect. We ask that if people are speaking, that they speak directly to the Planning Commission, that realize that there may be people that have different views, and that's okay, but everybody deserves to be heard. Moans, groans, clapping, etc. I'll ask one time. Other than that, we'll have people removed from the meeting. Please, 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 I beg you, don't put me in that situation. I don't want to be in that. So prior to this, we need to do a procedural vote here. The procedural vote is for an agenda change. I need to make a motion to the Planning Commission due to information that just came to my attention that C and D under discussion items, number 7, be removed until next time. And I make that motion. Is there any objection to changing the agenda from any planning commissioner?
Just to be clear, the motion's to remove under number 7, C and D.
Yes.
From the meeting.
From the meeting tonight.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. The agenda has been amended. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and call for our public comments at this time. The public comment session that we have tonight, the public can address the Planning Commission with anything that's not on the agenda that's within our purview. The session would be up to 15 minutes, and each speaker may speak for up to 3 minutes. We ask that if you come up, that you sign in, you state your name and your address, and then the time would begin. So at this time, we'll open the public session. Is there any comments, things in the purview of the Planning Commission that people would like to speak about tonight? Seeing none, we'll declare the public session closed at this point. We'll move forward with adoption of minutes from our December 8th, 2025 regular meeting. Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to review the meeting's minutes? Are there any edits, omissions, corrections that are noted? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we adopt the minutes of December 8th, 2025 regular meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. So moved. Now, this is a part where this is a concept presentation. During this, staff, are there any updates, reports, or changes that we need to be aware of?
No, sir. This, as you described it, this is basically a continuation of of the presentation of their concept has changed, and so they'll be focusing on that tonight.
Okay. And so at this time, there are no action items on our agenda for tonight. So I would ask a member from Toll Brothers to come and present the concept and concept updates. At this point, we would tell you that 10 minutes. If you need extension, we'll get that when you're there. Okay? Please come up, state your name, and introduce yourself to the commissioners.
Here's the
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marielle Arias.
And if you could, speak up, because we capture on YouTube here, and we want people to hear in the back.
Yes, sir. So my name is Marielle Arias. I'm on the acquisitions team for the student housing team at Kennedy Wilson. Toll Brothers was previously acquired very recently, so Kennedy Wilson is technically who will be leading this development with the same intent and same team. I'm also joined by Nick Immerman, who's the development manager on our team. Brian Skurlock is also joining us. He's a senior retail broker with Pintail, a South Carolina-based firm who's been a valuable resource to us as we contemplate the retail on this site. And Josh Sachs, who's representing Dwell Design, who's the architect on the project. I'd like to start by saying thank you for your comments since the last meeting in mid-November. You expressed a desire for more retail, more open space, a larger emphasis on the non-residential uses on the site, and we heard those comments, and it really challenged us, and in turn challenged our consultants to go back and rethink what was possible on the site, given the existing constraints. And so what you'll see here today, we think, is a plan that is worthy of being a catalyst on this gateway site, but also provides far more community benefits than the first iteration. Let's see if this works. All right. So as a recap, this is the project team. So Kennedy Wilson is going to be the owner-developer. Dwell is the architect. Ironwood is leading the landscape architecture. And then Seaman Whiteside is our civil engineer. Since our last meeting, we've also engaged Revel, which you'll see on the screen here. They are a national real estate consulting firm. They have been instrumental in helping us design this plan, not only in a way that is feasible from a total square footage perspective, but also in a way that is tasteful to ensure that the retail also leases eventually. Right? As a quick recap, I would just like to quickly go over the original concept plan. As you remember, it was mostly 7 stories of residential, and then it tailed off to 5 stories in the back of the site. There was a mix of surface and structured stalls, and then there were 6,000 square feet of retail tucked along Reed Street in the front of the page in those 2 standalone pads. There was also a really lovely paseo in between those pads that we've kept for the second iteration, as you'll see. And then 2 additional improvements that we're keeping for the second iteration is a new bus shelter outside of CBS for the existing Cat Plus stop there, and then sidewalk improvements along Greenlee Place all the way up to the corner of Dupree Street. This is our updated site plan, and I just want to go over the changes before we get into some renderings and I pass it off to Josh. Very large changes since the last iteration. First, the retail square footage has nearly tripled. So it went from 6,000 square feet originally to a little over 15,600 square feet. So a big change. This is 8,500 square feet more than what exists on the site today, which is great. And then also because of the new configuration, this ensures that it will be at least 5 or more vendors, turning this site at the corner of the entrance to the city into much more of a true retail destination, we think. And so that's what we're really excited about there. You'll also notice in the center, it's a little small here, but there's a public plaza that we created. So that's a new feature that is allowing us to really activate the retail space and again, ensure that it is appealing to future operators. So that'll turn this site into a year-round benefit for Clemson residents. And then this feature alone adds over 7,200 square feet of public open space to the project. And we and the Rebel team and Brian, we're working together to figure out really creative ways to program that. Again, so it's a year-round benefit for Clemson residents. In addition to those programmatic changes, I want to go over a few structural changes as well. You'll notice that we've lined a large portion of the garage that is on the eastern side of the property. Right now it's at the top of the page, but we've lined a large portion of that with units. So that'll be a natural screening for any future development that occurs on Dupree Street and Church Street up there. We've also removed the 7-story portion of the building that was facing Tiger Boulevard. So that area that abuts the retail is now only 6 stories. So we think it's now a more efficient structure on the site, but then also it'll allow the retail to stand on its own, be more prominent, reduce that massing, all things that we think will make it a more vibrant destination. And then I gotta give Josh some credit here from Dwell because we were able to do those things and make those additions and revise this project while maintaining a residential parking ratio of 75%. So those will be in the structured garage. We're also providing sufficient surface stalls. This is actually more surface stalls than our first iteration. We're providing sufficient stalls for world-class retail partners, which we know is gonna be a big requirement on their end. And then third, I'll just say something I personally really enjoy about this project is it delivers visually a project that is much more similar to what exists there today in terms of height, while also providing much more benefit to the city in terms of retails, a true destination for family and residents, and other community benefits that I'll review at the end of the slide as well, or at the end of the presentation. And then next I'm gonna pass it over to Josh Sachs from Dwell Design. He's gonna review some of the updated renderings that you have in front of you that'll show what this space can be.
You're at about 4 minutes right now.
4 minutes?
Yeah, if you need some more.
Okay,
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and spend that to total 9.
9 minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. My name is Josh Sachs. I'm with Dwell Design Studio. We're the architectural partner on this project. And we're excited to be here to present this update to the scheme that's here before you. As Mariel mentioned, we really reconceptualized this entire project from the ground up. And at the heart of that project, we were really excited about this idea of creating a public plaza. And that's what you see before you on the screen. We really thought about being intentional and creating a place and a central focal point and almost, creating a neighborhood identity for the project. And that's what this plaza creates. So what you see is a conceptual landscape rendered plan from our landscape partners. And some of the key points I wanted to take from this design is the emphasis on the mixture of landscape and hardscape zones, promoting the idea of outdoor dining, of outdoor seating, of really creating an active and open and public outdoor space that can be utilized by both residents of the residential component, but really of the greater neighborhood itself. So I just want to walk you through really quickly, time is short, the updates to the design as a whole. Some of the positive feedback we received last time was on the two smaller out parcel buildings that you see on the left here. And we really wanted to celebrate that, and we heard you that you guys wanted more of that, so that's what we've done. And we really try to bring that over, to the other portion of the site. Some key points you'll see from this vantage point. This is off of Tiger Boulevard looking into the site. Obviously the active vibrant use is on the left, but at the end of that axis off of Tiger, you have retail fronting you, and to the left of that, just to the left of that is the plaza itself. So it really brings you into the site and celebrates kind of that retail community feel. The other thing, as Meryl mentioned, is the massing of the building. Yes, it's still a 6-story building, there's no getting around that, but we really pulled it back from the plaza itself. And from that internal drive, the mass really pulls back from where it was, and I just want to zoom in on the next slide. This is a little bit closer looking in. One strategy we employed, which we think is really important, is pulling the residential massing away from the retail massing. So you can see at the ground level, in order to kind of celebrate that same design language that we had on the two smaller out parcel buildings, by pulling it out, we have that same expression and that same design aesthetic can carry through at the ground level here. And from within the plaza itself, at the pedestrian scale, you really feel that single story experience rather than the experience of the residential beyond. So yeah, we really think this plaza space can be a really vibrant, active front door to both the retail and the residential, because our entry to our building is actually at the end of the plaza. So for us, it's really about creating a vibrant public open space, and we really want the retail to be successful because it's our front door, and we need it to be successful. This is kind of a semi-aerial overview of the plaza, and this is what really gets us excited about this project. We, taking fresh eyes and redesigning this, we think has really been a net benefit for the neighborhood and for the residential experience as well. And then stepping a little bit further back, this is in between those two out parcel buildings, looking back at the plaza. Once again, we have like a focal point retail experience in between those two buildings, but really this idea of creating a village of retail was at the heart of what we were designing. And this is just the last view, looking in between those two out parcel buildings. We think this could be a really vibrant food and beverage experience. And yeah, we're just excited where this project has landed and these updates. And happy to answer any questions you may have. In the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to Nick, who's going to talk a little bit further about retail.
So thank you for having us back this time around. To reiterate what Mariel said at his opening, we heard you loud and clear at the last presentation in November that as a planning commission, you want to see a significant retail and mixed-use component on this site and at this intersection that serves local residents and students alike, and then contains vibrant and practical public space. Immediately after the last meeting, we got together to figure out how to make this happen. Understanding our limitations as student housing developers, we recognize the need to bring in real retail experts to help us kind of craft a plan that works here and that helps create a real mixed-use destination here. To that end, we engaged Revel. They're a retail developer and consultant who specializes in creating high-traffic retail destinations filled with unique local tenants to join our team. Revel has significant experience creating dynamic retail environments. Some of their major projects include Krog Street Market and Atlanta Dairies, both in Atlanta, amongst many others in the Southeast and nationally. So they have real retail firepower that honestly our team was lacking a little bit of, and so we were very happy to have them engaged on the project. So with their help, we started laying out a retail program and merchandising plan, as well as programming ideas for the public plaza. As you can see here, within the 15,600 plus square feet of retail, we expect to have 7 retail bays. Obviously, they can be demised a little bit differently, but we expect seven retailers, planning for 3 food and beverage concepts and 4 traditional day-to-day service type retail spaces. They developed an initial list of the type of retailers and local and regional operators we would target for each of these spaces. And our underwriting reflects the tenant improvement allowances and the rents that these type of operators and retailers would require. Obviously, these are sort of our target list of the kind of operators we would like to go to for the various spaces. We're obviously very early in the process, but as you can see, really trying to target local regional operators for the various spaces here. As Josh said, I hope we've tried to demonstrate through this revised plan that the retail component here has become much more than just a token piece. I mean, I think you guys recognize that in the last plan, that 6,000 square feet of outparcel retail was just not enough. It was really a token piece to the overall project. Retail now is an integral part of the project, and it's critical to our overall success. Given the site's location outside of core downtown Clemson and the fact that we will have 15,600 square feet of commercial space right outside of our leasing office, it's critical that we create a dynamic, vibrant, and successful retail environment that serves the overall community 12 months out of the year and drives leasing for our project. So to do that, we have a couple of challenges. We've got to activate this public plaza, the 7,000 square feet public plaza, and we have to make sure we've got sufficient, convenient surface parking for retail users. So this slide kind of goes into some detail on the type of programming we hope to bring to the site to create an actual place for people to gather. We view this site as a catalyst for development in the surrounding neighborhood, and much more than just like another strip shopping center. We envision seasonal concerts in the plaza, a holiday market pop-up, arts festivals featuring community vendors, et cetera, et cetera. And as Josh said, the leasing office is really at the back of this plaza. So the worst thing that could happen for us is a dead plaza. We need vibrant retail, we need programming, we want that place to be a real hub of community and life. In addition, as with all developments, and especially retail developments, parking is a critical component of this. This slide demonstrates our assumptions for peak retail parking use. So we're planning for 72 surface parking spaces on the site to serve the retail. We're assuming a peak use of about 60 spaces based on the current proposed mix of tenants. So we feel like we've got ample spaces out on the surface spots to serve the retail, and those would be exclusive for retail use. All the residential spaces would be in the deck, and we would have parking management company sort of enforcing that. Really, in closing, as it relates to the retail on our site, our expectation is that with the right design and the right merchandising plan, the right programming of the public plaza, and the right parking, we can create a vibrant retail destination here that serves local residents, students, and importantly helps catalyze the further development of the surrounding neighborhood, and also prompts retailers to take a fresh look at the existing vacant retail spaces further down 76. We think let's create a really great destination here, let's fill these spaces up, and I think that can be a catalyst for really trying to drive, leasing of the retail further down 76 and also the redevelopment of the neighborhood behind us. I'm now going to turn it back to Muriel to discuss the community benefits and then open it up to questions and comments from you. Thank you very much.
I just need a minute.
That's fine.
That's fine. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so lastly, want to review community benefits again, as this slide too is changed. As we alluded to, total square footage of the retail, well over 15,000. As I mentioned, that's 8,500 more than what exists today in the restaurant. Impact and development fees, just from a permit and construction perspective, will be well over $2 million. The public plaza area is 7,200 square feet. In terms of total open space, that figure is likely higher, so that doesn't include the paseo between the standalone pads. And then there is a plethora of green space around the site that I think we will eventually program. We just haven't included it in this figure yet. And then something we didn't bring up last time, but from a tax-based perspective, there's obviously a large difference from what exists there today to what could be possible with this plan. And so we anticipate annually over $1.5 million additional dollars in terms of tax revenue to Pickens County. And our estimates of that'll be $600,000 or more to the city of Clemson annually. So again, we feel really good about that in particular. And then, as I mentioned initially, the two that carry over are gonna be the bus shelter, an example pictured here, which we think would be helpful, and then new streetscapes along Reed, Tiger Boulevard, and Highway 76. Thanks again, and then any and all of us are open to questions, so. Anyway.
Yes.
I have some questions.
Commissioner Hyde?
Well, first of all, on the slides that we received, slide 26 has a unit matrix, and it talks about like how many units are gonna be 5 bedroom, 5 bath, that make up.
Sure.
Is that, it wasn't included in this presentation?
In this version, there might be an appendix actually. Let's go back. Let's continue. Yep.
I looked through those, but my question is that you have some 4 bedroom, 4 bath units, and then you have some 4 bedroom, 2 bath units. Are these units like rent by the bedroom or rent by the unit?
Are you referring to the 4x2 specifically?
Yeah, I want to know about all of it, but the 4x2 specifically.
Yep. So our plan would be to develop purpose-built student housing, rent by the bed, furnished, as that is the demand gap that we've identified, and that's frankly our expertise. So that's our plan for all of them, and then 4-2 just has fewer bathrooms, but we think those are very important to provide and a much more affordable option to enter a state-of-the-art project like this one.
How we typically set those units up is it's each obviously an individual bedroom. The sinks are usually outside of the lavatory, so the only thing you're sharing is the shower and the toilet. But you can, so that's typically how they're set up.
So those are less expensive.
They're like an entry point. Yeah.
The 4x2 specifically, yes. Yeah. So I think, affordability is a topic that is permeating through our society, and I think our industry is no different. And so something I'm really passionate about is trying to include a lower entry point for our new projects, because I think they're great. I think the amenities are great. I think a retail village like this one would be great. And so if we can expand the reach of price points, why not?
And when you're doing purpose-built student housing, if a family wanted to move into a 4-bedroom, 2-bath unit, it's not open to families, or they would rent by the unit? I'm just trying to, we need units for families to rent, so I'm trying to figure out these 4-bedroom, 2-bath units that you have, so.
So what usually happens is we do rent by the bed, and so just because then you multiply the bedrooms by the unit, then it doesn't become a comparable unit for someone who wants a family with a 4-bedroom unit. So typically we don't see it, not that we aren't open to those families, but typically from a price standpoint, once you compare it, it does make sense. I think the benefit of more student housing, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is what we think a large chunk of our residents will come from is west of the lake and north of Tiger. And so if those students do come from those areas, it'll free up housing, much of it being conventional for families, for full-time grads or professionals or et cetera, people who need housing as well. We're just of the opinion that new purpose-built student housing should be as close to campus as possible, and so that's why we think this site is appropriate for this use case.
Any other questions? Comments? Commissioner Cummings? Commissioner Rice?
I don't have anything, I just have comment that I definitely would like to look and feel this much better. So thank you for taking the feedback and coming back with this. Definitely look much more vibrant retail design. So
I appreciate it, thank you.
So you also, you moved the entrance to the garage off of Greenlee from the interior lot?
Did we have an entrance on it? That we added?
Yeah, previously we only had an entrance internal to the site, so I think one of the advantages of this scheme is there's now residential entry off of Greenlee itself, so you don't have all the residents going through the retail zone to access the garage.
So the second entrance now?
Yeah, the second entrance.
Okay, so that's just, where's the prime, or the other entrance? I'm looking at the, like, there may be a better shot. The one in front of me just has it highlighted. I can't, it's under, okay, the backside there under D2.
Through that internal drive.
Yeah.
Okay, at the very back end all the way around?
Yep. Yeah, small arrow, but it's.
I don't laser that point to it, but all the way on the east side of that drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Around the backside.
Now, I mentioned that the first floor is available for overflow for retail employees and rideshare pickup possibly. The only thing I was thinking about is if that back area being a ride, if people start getting picked up there, they're just gonna start cutting up through the neighborhood instead of circling around, if that makes sense.
So I think the first floor, that entrance off of Greenlee is gonna be at, I think, level 3 of the deck, which would be only residential. So basically, like, the first floor of the deck down below will be sort of more for leasing, parking, rideshare pickup inside the deck at the first level, but you'll have a nested gate. So unless you're a resident who pays for parking, you won't be able to utilize that Greenlee entrance.
So it'd be like fob controllers, like?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
It's actually just also related to the topography of the site. As you go up Greenlee, it rises.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just, I didn't even think about the rise of it being on the third floor, but that was the only concern, was if they ever do ride share, that instead of, I mean, some of the drivers in town, instead of going all the way around, they'll just shortest route possible, and then back up there is faster than circling around to get to the university, so.
Commissioner Yetter?
Yeah, so just two real quick questions. So it looks like you're trying to move the drive cut off of 76, or is it just better placed now?
We are trying
You
to,
are trying to move it?
we are trying to move it.
Is that gonna happen?
That's a great question. I was hoping you'd have the answer.
I'd say no. Just knowing the DOT, but.
Well, so we're engaging CBS for that.
Okay,
Yeah, so DOT is in favor.
so CBS owns that drive? Is that what you're?
Yeah, there's an existing access easement that runs from that existing drive cut actually to the CVS and through the surface spots back out to Tiger.
Okay.
DOT actually would prefer us to move that curb cut further away from Greenlee. So they were actually in support of moving that curb cut. We have to go through a negotiation with the CVS.
And then, last time there was a question about the community benefit. I'm not real sure I understand what you're proposing or constituting or saying as the community benefit. Are you saying taxes are the benefit? Building fees are the benefit?
Those two, the open space,
Bus?
cat bus, additional retail than what exists today. And then there's sidewalk extension all the way up to Dupree. That I know at least half will have to do by right, but we are taking it further to Dupree. We're still studying how much exactly additional linear feet that is, but.
Yeah, I would just say try to be extremely specific before you come back with the.
Yeah, and I would say we are really want to have more discussions about community benefits and I think we just we want to talk more about that with you all, with planning staff, with the community, and I think that hopefully through this process we can come up with a set of.
Planning staff can give you most of that stuff, but I think last time there was a big concern about you're taking the commercial property that could be retail all the way around, and we're trying to make it into student housing with a little bit, and I know you almost tripled, you've added like 9,000 square feet of retail, but we wouldn't have to change zoning, we could tear that down and do put retail there. Somebody would have to do it, not me, but somebody would have to do it. So I think the idea that 15,000 square feet of retail as a community benefit is a little far stretched. I would just say make sure we have some definitive ideas on what that actually is. I wouldn't consider fees and taxes and all that as a community benefit. I know we get that, but I don't know that the community sees that as a benefit. So just weigh that.
Yeah,
And,
understood.
and the impact fees and development fees
That's
are
gonna
there
happen
no matter
anyway.
what.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
a
what
big
they're
deal.
trying to say.
Yeah, understood. And I think, yeah, again, like we want to have those conversations about how we can really provide, I guess would you say, true community benefits outside of what's by right or by the nature of the project itself.
Commissioner Rush?
No, I guess just thank you guys for the work you've put in to make the changes that you have. We appreciate that, or I do personally. Just a couple of things. I mean, I still kind of agree with Mr. Yoder that it's, to me, you're losing those beds, hotel beds, that may not be needed every weekend of the year, but there is a need for it. I believe this property's zoned CP2 right now, which will be for large commercial, which, again, is something that if we were to move forward with this project, we lose that. To where the way it is now, somebody could come in, put in large, whether it be a large anchor with connecting businesses. The plaza, I do like it. The examples that you guys have provided, and again, I'm not a commercial expert or a retail expert in any stretch of the imagination. But I think with some of the examples for C through G in here, you're not gonna activate that plaza. I can tell you that myself and my family would not be coming to hang out at the plaza with the examples that are provided here. You know, it's more like sit-down restaurants in A and B, and then more of your professional services in C through G. To where almost to me, if you looking at some of the other major metropolitan areas that activate these types of plazas, it's more of something where you can gather and have a drink or have a meal or, you know, light snacks, something like that, is what brings people to those areas. So again, just my opinion on that, you know, say just hypothetically, if we were to have one of the restaurants or professional services from what's provided here, probably would go to the restaurant, probably wouldn't activate the plaza. Just as a young married couple with 2 young children. So, and again, just appreciate that, but I'm having a hard time in my mind envisioning that particular location, as I mentioned last time, just with the traffic patterns, the way they go at that location, it being ideal for purpose-built student housing. But again, we're kind of talking through this and working, and I know you guys probably have some great plans and great ideas that you could come up with. I don't see tonight from this updated plan, I see a lot of changes that were made, but I don't see how it would benefit the people who are living there getting to and from campus easier. So that's all I got for right now.
Mr. Crowley?
No, the to and from campus is one of the issues. Traffic patterns, they're still right in, right out, even if you guys move that one down and on the other side.
If we shift that 76 driveway, we think DOT would be open to talking about a full turning intersection, but that's where we kind of left it with them. A full turn driveway, sorry.
When would you guys have a final answer on whether that'd be right in or?
We just need to continue the conversation with them. We just need to sort of settle the site plan.
Okay, just because that, I mean, I was talking about it with the city engineer, we discussed, it's, a right in, right out, I understand their view on it being safer, but it does create a really awkward traffic loop to get to the property if you're coming from anywhere other than specific spots. So if you're coming in from out of town, you gotta come up the ramp, get on 93, come over, come down 76, and then come in, because you can't turn right in off 123. You can't turn right in, or you wouldn't be able to turn left in off 123. You wouldn't be able to turn left in off 76. So your only way in is to come that way. So you've got to be coming down that way to get in.
Yep.
So that would be just for deliveries and everything, that would be kind of an issue where I would start to worry if it's right in, right out, how many people are just, even if there's a concrete little bump there, just gonna hop, what kind of issues that's gonna create.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, we do think also that having that, that added entrance off of Greenlee for the deck will alleviate a lot of residential traffic from the two sort of retail curb cuts. And we think a lot of students will utilize that Greenlee exit, come down to 76, and then take a left out to go to campus that way, if that makes sense. And then same, like, right into Greenlee, then left into the deck that way. Trying to alleviate some of that traffic on the two retail curb cuts.
Quick note on traffic patterns, I just want to comment on that. I would just quickly point back to this slide that one of the reasons why we think this site would improve traffic patterns for residents and Clemson residents is because as a percentage, there are a lot of Clemson students who live further away from campus than a lot of other similarly sized schools, just because the downtown and College Avenue on Clemson doesn't have as many off-campus beds as other markets typically do. And so there are well over 10,000 students that live outside of College Avenue. And so properties like Grand Mark, and similarly this one, if it were to come to fruition, would bring students from further out, closer to campus, and then open up other modes of transportation that otherwise don't exist to them. So those students are currently maybe on the CAT bus if they're on a route, but more than likely they're driving. And even if they're not driving, they're car owners. And so if we can get those car owners to stash their cars in our deck and then take either a scooter, a bike, walk, the CAT bus, it would alleviate the burden for them, but then also a lot of that traffic along College, along Tiger, we think, during those peak class hours, would be alleviated to that extent. So that's sort of where our mind is, just thinking where these future residents are gonna come from, how we're opening up a different world of modes of transportation to them. So that's sort of what we're prioritizing in that regard. So I'll point that out.
So I know that we think this is closer to Clemson University than other housing, but then one day there's going to be housing closer to Clemson University than this complex is. And would you consider rent by the unit dwellings, or are you only in business for rent by the room? Because one day, there may not be a need for rent by the room in that location.
I'll take this. I mean, I would say the way that we underwrite it is by the bed. But if like the market were to shift in a significant way, there's no reason that a 3-bedroom, 3-bath student housing unit, it's no different in many ways than a 3-bedroom, 3-bath apartment, right? So like if the market dynamic shifted in such a way that there was demand for family housing, or there was demand for just traditional market rate housing, that the way that outside of like the bed count per, we have
You have 5-bedroom, 5-bath units.
we do have, so those are big, right? But like our 4s and 3s, 2s, et cetera, like the way that the units are designed is really not different than a typical market rate apartment in general.
I was gonna say, I just think it's unlikely that there will be enough development along College or between us and College to fit the demand, or to fill that demand, just because there's a huge residential neighborhood sort of diagonal in between us. Unless, and on the other side, so unless College starts, everything's 10 stories or higher, I don't really see them fulfilling the density. So that's why I think this could be a second best option and a more affordable one, because the developers on College are gonna be higher in rent than we are. So I think that's also a different layer to this. And I think Grand Mark sort of proves it out because they're very popular. So.
Would you have a rough estimate about what the rent would be per bed on this? Just, I know I'm probably asking you a question you don't want to answer, but.
Yeah, it changes, so I can get that to you, but
Yeah.
it depends on the unit mix for me to find the average, right? So, I can get that to you, but I don't have it at the top of my head, one that I feel comfortable being accurate.
So I would say if you look at what's published rents for the downtown College Avenue rents, we expect to be a discount to those rents.
20%.
That's about right.
Yeah, probably several $100
less.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly say that, you know, the way it's set up right now is that if you're hoping that they'll park their cars, they probably will, because I think it'll be so difficult to get out, to get to campus as far as driving goes. You know, because really either way you look at it, either you cut through the neighborhood to get to 93, or you leave and you have a tough time getting all the way across 76 to get on 123, or you take a right on 123, go up to 93, and you're fighting 93 traffic during class time trying to get there, so.
Yeah. We also, I mean, I think we talked about this last time, but from interviewing students, parking on campus is terrible. People miss class because they can't find a parking spot, and so if we're reasonably close to campus and the CAT bus is on a reasonable schedule that can get them to campus, or they can scoot, it is a viable alternative to get to class. And we saw, if you look at the Grand Mark, the number of kids getting on the bus at Grand Mark, at that Grand Mark stop on 76, it's like that bus gets full. It gets used. And so we're hoping and assuming that it'll be a similar situation a little bit further down the road for us.
But the bottom line is, where are you gonna get the buses?
So that's
Where are you gonna get the buses? I mean, same thing happened out at the pier.
yeah.
I mean, biggest complaint. So I don't know that accommodates what you're thinking.
Yeah, we've seen the agreement that I think the pier is signed or is working on with CatBus, and I think we are open and we want to have those conversations.
Well, bottom line is with the buses, and we don't need to get into here because that's really not where we're going to land. But buses have to get paid for somehow.
Yep.
And when you're adding this many students and you're adding things like that, the city can't just do it.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of places have private shuttles and things like that. So, I mean, that's a major concern, is doing that, saying, well, they'll take the CAT bus. Well, there's no CAT bus to take.
Yeah.
You're not taking the CAT bus. And if it gets filled up at the stop before, you're not taking the CAT bus.
Yeah.
And I guess I have a couple of questions. I mean, anybody else? I'd rather y'all go first if y'all got something else. So, just things to think about. Number one, last time we talked about, is there a way on this property to have a row of additional townhouses or things like that were sold? I don't see anything about that. We also talked about the possibility of having some of the units that were built for families or things even above the retail or things like that. Would there be any consideration of doing traditional apartments? The other part is the way that I heard about the activation is that y'all were planning on maintaining and creating an activation environment. Is that correct?
That would be on
concerts, that would be all on y'all.
That would be at our cost. That would be at our cost.
And who's gonna run that?
Yeah, so we'd have a retail, we'd have obviously a retail manager. We have the residential manager. We would have to figure out who would be responsible. Probably the retail property manager would be responsible for that programming, interfacing with the community to create the activations, et cetera.
And the retail operators will take a role in that as well. If it's a F&B
Well,
operator.
not if you're turning around going, I'm gonna do a holiday market and you have mostly service industries. It doesn't work like that.
No, but if one of them has outdoor dining, was the example, like that would partially activate that corner of the space, and so like different.
Right.
Yeah. So
But if you were gonna do programming in the plaza, what Greg says, it would need to be something totally different, somebody else responsible for it. And then that would be taking you at your word that it was gonna happen. So I think you need to think about how that's really gonna happen and what that's gonna be, and there has to be a budget for it, that's done, if something like that was gonna happen. The other part is traditionally, you just mentioned, there was a transition from Toll Brothers student housing to Kennedy. Traditionally, y'all have more assets under management and sold than you have, it looks like, from what I did. Are you planning on keeping this? You're gonna sell it?
That's something else that may very well change because of the new move. So Kennedy Wilson owns a lot more units than Toll Brothers did, and so they may.
I understand that, but they manage a whole lot more assets under management.
Right. So I'm saying the strategy may shift. We don't have an answer.
I think that needs to be thought about. We've had people who come here and promise all these things that are gonna happen, and the next thing it gets sold and none of it happens.
Yeah,
So that's a big deal.
yeah.
I mean, just giving you honest feedback.
I mean, I wonder if there's like a way to memorialize some of these, like the programming expenses, for example.
Oh, there will be.
Yeah, I think like if we
If
can
it was
figure.
ever to go anywhere, I promise you, there will be.
Yeah, so that it extends beyond just us as standing up here saying, I think that's what we would, assume, or want to work with you on doing,
Well,
Our back door being at the back of the plaza, for example, if the plaza stays as it is, would sort of be like us building our way to whoever owns it would be in benefit of activating the plaza, because those
that's
renderings
true,
don't
but
look
there's
as
some
good with the
people
lights
that
on.
can say they activate, and there's some people that activate.
yeah, understood. And
And there's a big difference in that.
Yeah, understood. And again, like, we recognize that we do not have all of that retail expertise, especially like this creative placemaking expertise. Like, we don't have that in-house, and we think we've brought in a really best-in-class retail developer / consultant in Revel to help us really think through and figure out how to create this place. And I think their portfolio of projects, I mean, it ranges from food halls to, ballparks, et cetera. Like, they really have the expertise that we don't, and I think maybe we can, if we could, we'll try to bring them to the next meeting, and I think it's a great idea, like, we need to memorialize some of these programming pieces into like.
Well, at the end of the day, if it were to move forward, and I can't speak for everybody, there is a document that creates what will happen, and of all those concerns would significantly be addressed throughout all of that to move forward. But I would say, you're banking on getting that left turn out of Greeley now. That's what you're banking on, because you just said they're gonna come out of the garage, take a right, then take a left. That's what you just said, right? Isn't that what he said?
Down the right.
Well, you can do that now.
You can do
You're
that now.
banking on that that's what's gonna happen.
Yes, sir.
And so when you hit the traffic study and things like that,
It's a hard lift sometimes.
huh?
It's a hard lift
hard lift
sometimes.
to make.
Yeah,
There's a center turn lane there, but yeah, understood.
I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
So just being realistic with you, I think the bar's high. I think when you're talking about the public benefits, I get that part of it. Tell you the same thing I told you last time. We're gonna get that one way or another.
Understood.
It just is.
Yeah.
And so I would consider some of those other options, and I know you're primarily in student housing, but I also know where you came from is not primarily in student housing. And a bigger mix and a better benefit to the community and some of those kind of things maybe warrant consideration. So that's what I would tell you from my perspective and what I see here. Commissioner Rice, you have a comment? You look like you did. I
No more.
I don't know, I had this crazy idea that, the public plaza and the residential courtyard, I'm assuming you need the residential courtyard because the units need to look into something green. I didn't know if there could be like a tunnel going into the residential courtyard where and I don't even know if that's a good idea, but I was thinking about some of your programming and some of your activation. You don't have a lot of space for programming, looks like to me, but your residential courtyard is a little bit bigger, so I didn't know if that would be something that.
It's actually interesting. So we talked a lot about the size of this plaza. Originally, in one of the earlier iterations, the plaza was actually much larger. In talking with the folks at Revel, they basically were like, you need to squeeze the plaza down. It does create less space for programming, but from like a pedestrian experience, in their experience and based on past projects, large plazas are less successful. They feel too big. You feel like sort of like you're standing out there and there's nobody else there type of thing. And so they actually wanted to squeeze down the size of the plaza a little bit to make it more intimate, make it more pedestrian, and make it feel more vibrant. And so we went back and forth on that size of that plaza because we do have some flexibility there, and we went with their recommendation, but are definitely open to having further conversations.
I had that same idea about
Well, I'm like, if it's a concert, none of those college students care if they're up all night listening to a concert. Where is that going to happen? But
Yeah, this is a good picture somewhere. So like, just as an example, like you could have like somebody playing the banjo up on this deck here, for example, and folks sitting in those around those trees, etc. As a small example, but yeah, we've gone back and forth a lot on that plaza size, but open to continuing that conversation for sure.
So the other thing that I would tell you that, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
well, and it also looks like you're going down steps into the plaza, and I know it's just renderings, but is that part the same level as the retail right on Reed Street?
So you're going to be, like, if Reed Street's at the highest, because Reed Street sits up pretty high, and then there will be a couple of steps down.
Okay.
And then you'll have like a raised crosswalk across. This was another piece of feedback from Revel, was about the height of the retail spaces, like the clear height that you want. They were saying, I think it was 13.6 clear height, 13 feet 6 clear height. So one way to do that without like having double story space, which they didn't recommend, was to try and drop the plaza like a foot or two to get that clear height. Again, like just trying to maximize the potential to lease these spaces out.
So are y'all thinking of subsidization for businesses to come in here? Subsidizing, upfit?
Yeah, we budgeted for improvement allowances on a per square foot basis. Yeah, definitely something we're thinking about as we design these further.
And we've worked with Brian. Brian gave us his recommended range for tenant improvement allowances. I think we're actually
A little above that.
above what he has recommended or what he's seeing in the market. Yeah, so we're definitely got healthy budgets for tenant upfit.
Commissioner Hyatt, what else?
I mean, I guess, yeah, no, I'm good.
I guess one more thing. I guess your residential or retail management would handle parking enforcement as well. Because just kind of looking at these retail places, I would hate for, with us being at 75%, that the retail spaces end up getting used by residents.
We would definitely have parking enforcement for the retail spaces, for our inside the deck for leasing spaces. Like we know students do not want to follow the rules when it comes to parking in this property or any property, and so parking enforcement is definitely something we do at every project pretty much, and we'll definitely do here. And retailers will demand it. If their customers can't park, yeah, they'll be calling us. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to put that out there on the record.
So the only other comment that I would have is if there's a way for you to pick up more of these buildings that you said you couldn't pick up,
We know.
there is a way to pick them up. I'm telling you. The one over here, this water plant, right back here by your two retail buildings, there's a way to pick it up. And one consideration I had, this is out of the box idea. What if you pick this up, put a convenience in here with gas pumps? I'm talking about the gas station. I know you said he told you never to come back and talk to him again. But what if you picked it up?
Can I come forward?
Yeah, what if you picked it up, purposed it as retail up here with gas pumps out like you see at Harris Teeter, things like that?
Conversations we've had make me think that that is not financially feasible, just because of how successful they are, which is a kudos to them. So that's
That would
all I
make
know
you
at this
more
moment.
successful.
I won't promise anything. That's all
That
I
would
know.
make you more successful. Is it gonna cost you more money in the beginning? Absolutely. It's gonna cost you a whole lot more money. But the bottom line is it makes this site better. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, understood.
It's just one commissioner here saying it.
Got your work cut out for you, Mariel.
And I do know you can pick that other one up. You just might not want to pay what you have to get it.
We've looked, I mean, I'll be honest, like, we've looked at, we had a conversation with the owner
Right.
there. We tried to think about how it would, how it would modify the site, or how it would add, or, like what, and it's a pretty new building. It's not occupied really at the moment, but we do think, again, like having a successful development here will catalyze the leasing and success of that building. Like,
That building's not being looked to be leased right now.
well, but it's a
It's
nice
not
building.
being looked to be built, leased right now.
Yeah.
If he wanted to catalyze it,
He
he
would.
would catalyze it.
Yeah.
He doesn't need y'all to do that.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
I think our concern is that there have been a few consistent themes between our conversations with external retail resources, and two consistent threads have been, A, you should be very diligent about how you design it because you want to lease it, and operators have a lot of demands and they're strict, as they should be. But B, there's a certain amount of retail on the site that once you exceed it, it starts to, the design, it can't tastefully accommodate all of it.
Agreed.
And you start to,
You create more of a problem than you do a benefit.
and then the few operators that might have wanted a standalone pad at the top or somewhere else might then even be deterred by the amount of traffic and
Right.
patterns. So like that, so there is a fine line, and I will say that this is greater than several of the recommendations we've had in terms of square footage. So we do think we're the right track, and the plaza helps that. But that's the biggest concern with adding that piece of land, is that if we're not gonna add more retail on there, and we don't need to add more
But
land.
if you're gonna turn around and you already have something built there, you can utilize that for something and maybe turn something else into different type of housing. But that's just a comment. You know what to think through. We appreciate you coming here tonight in the discussion. Any other comments before they come back?
I mean, I would want to see more 3-bedroom, 3-bath, or versus 5-bedroom, 5-bath. Something that could one day be something else. But
Anybody else? Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So we will move to, there are no action items, any advisory items? Discussion items. Nathan, if we could get you up here to go through the next two things.
All right, let's start.
All right, I have two presentations tonight. They interplay with one another. We'll be starting with what we're calling NC1 part. Let's, just the top, yeah. We're gonna go with the neighborhood, what we're calling the neighborhood protection overlay, NC1. Strengthening neighborhood integrity through strategic overlays. We're addressing infill development and commercial encroachment in the Coldwater Springs and Sloan Poe neighborhoods. And while Art's handing those out, I'm going to go to the next slide, which is something, if you all attended a community meeting before, you may have seen me do. I'm gonna read this. There's a lot of text in my slides tonight. That's not something I would normally do, but I want you all to be able to take this with you, and I know this is gonna be distributed throughout the community, so I want people to have a very clear picture of what my staff and I are trying to do here. All based on community feedback we've received. The city of Clemson has grown considerably in recent decades and will continue to grow rapidly in the coming years as well. With this growth has come development in terms of public services and commerce, as well as economic and social opportunity to residents. Yet, this growth has also brought about congestion, encroachment on existing neighborhoods, and a strain upon the city's unique quality of life. Does anyone know when this was written?
1989.
1989. This is the preamble to the land use plan. And what was the population in 1989? $11,064 residents. What was the total university enrollment in 1989? You get this one, I'll be impressed.
15.
Close. 16,072, which it remained for many years after that. What is the population of Clemson today? 18,610. And what is the total university enrollment today? 29,545. To understand the pressure that the city faces, we have to look at numbers. This rapid expansion is what drives the market demand we're seeing in our residential cores. I want to talk to you about the challenges of unsystematic growth. We are currently dealing with unsystematic growth, and that manifests itself in 4 ways. Speculative infill inside the neighborhood where homes or lots are bought solely for demolition. Anxiety about ad hoc construction that lacks a cohesive plan or seems out of place within the context of the neighborhood. The loss of environmental assets like our tree canopies within the neighborhood when builds happen, and direct commercial encroachment into residential areas. I'm going to stop here before I go to the next slide and tell you what I've done the past month since we talked. I've spent nearly 50 hours talking one-on-one in my office and outside the office with residents in both neighborhoods. I specifically reached out to those who have had the courage to speak up at either for or against development at this meeting or council, or at a planning commission meeting or a council meeting in the past. Many of these residents you guys are very familiar with, others you've never heard of. Some of them really like you, some of them do not. Some of them really like me, and most of them do not. But still, I listened, and this is what I heard. The community residents are vocal about 4 primary issues. They see their neighborhood character diminishing, and they feel the infiltration of commercial uses. Beyond the look of the neighborhood, they're concerned with the loss of the tree canopy within inside the neighborhood, and the physical toll of living through prolonged disruptive construction cycles bothers them. Almost every resident that I spoke with had these 4 at the top of their list. Our proposed solution, this NC1 overlay is our response. It does 3 things. It strictly prohibits mixed-use expansion into the residential core. It mandates architectural cohesion through scale and massing requirements for all new builds. And it moves beyond suggestions and mandates the maintenance of our mature tree canopies. We see this as a win-win-win. Residents gain stability, developers get a clear set of rules, and the city gains a more unified community. You'll remember at the last meeting, I came with a list of 8 guidelines governing new constructions. For various reasons, and through my conversations with residents and staff, that list has been whittled down to 2. Under the NC1, all new construction, including single-family and accessory dwelling units, will require the approval of the Board of Architectural Review. As well, every project within the overlay areas are going to be subject to a city site management plan during construction. For those of you not familiar, we currently do that for commercial construction. We meet with the contractor on the front end. We go through where folks will park throughout construction. It's probably folks like Brian's the bane of their existence, but this sets clear rules and expectations for project managers and superintendents on site. You will remember at the last meeting, I also gave a list of 14 site standards for various reasons, and through my conversations with the residents, that list has been whittled down to these eight. We are tightening the rules on land use. Planned developments will no longer be allowed within the NC1 overlay district. We're also regulating lot frontage based on the average adjacent lots to prevent irregular, out-of-place subdivisions. And additionally, all new construction must include sidewalks or fee in lieu to improve walkability within the neighborhood. Moving on to site standards part 2. This mainly deals with trees. Nature is part of our character. This overlay requires that buildings must be designed to fit the landscape's topography rather than leveling it. We're requiring the planting of large native trees that will reach at least 50 feet in maturity, as well as ornamental trees like dogwoods to ensure that our next generation of canopy is already growing. Here's the map. Subject to change, but this map shows the specific boundaries of an NC1. You'll notice it targets areas most vulnerable to commercial infiltration and along the border. I want to preemptively answer an obvious question. We estimate that there are about 26 opportunities for new construction, either through, in both neighborhoods combined. Those either through subdividing a large lot or building on an existing lot. I'm not going to tell you where because there are speculative buyers listening. But between the two neighborhoods, the new construction guidelines have the opportunity to be enforced about 26 times, excluding the tear down and rebuild of homes or the building accessory dwelling units on an existing lot. Summarize. Our goal is to replace arbitrary growth patterns with a regulated growth model. For almost 40 years, concerns about commercial mixed use encroaching into existing neighborhoods has been a concern. This overlay is designed to shield neighborhoods from exactly that and serve as a critical buffer from further encroachment. And finally, we are establishing rigorous site standards to ensure that any new construction respects and enhances the neighborhood character rather than diminishing it, and maintaining our tree canopy. Next steps. We want to formalize the overlay district boundary, initiate a social media campaign, and send mailers to all property owners located that would be under the NC1. I'm going to continue to talk with residents one-on-one and hold a public hearing in February here so we can gather additional feedback. So I'm going to move on to some questions I'm sure you have. Why not expand this overlay to every R20 zone neighborhood in the city? I'm not going to read the first part, but basically these two neighborhoods are the only two that border CM. We see these as uniquely at risk. And neighborhoods such as Monaco, Mountain View, Ashley Estates, Calhoun, while all important, are not subject to the same level of immediate encroachment risk, and therefore the broad application of this is not appropriate for all R20 zone areas in the city. Why were some parcels excluded in the map? A lot here, but mainly the existing zoning classification or established land use. There are properties that are in these neighborhoods already, like Edgewood Arms apartments, the Sloan Street apartments, that are already zoned RM4, and so their inclusion would be inappropriate. As well, we excluded areas that we see, and I think most people see as long-established student housing, rentals, or multifamily dwellings that are either in or border these neighborhoods, or yes, this district. What was the justification of the boundary line? Historical precedent, existing density, property owner input. Throughout the comprehensive plan, we had many property owners in certain areas that spoke to us about the ability to move from R20 to upzone to not high-density student housing, but duplexes. Some even came to us with quadplexes. There are tasteful ways to do that that will not seem out of place bordering a neighborhood. And in the midst of an affordable housing crisis in the city, we, as a staff, see places where that could be appropriate. And finally, though controversial, the area south of Hedgerow is a long-established dedicated student housing district which has a distinct function and development pattern that falls outside of this overlay's protective scope. This overlay does still not protect neighborhoods from student development along College Avenue. Why? To change course on locating student housing on College Avenue would require a major transit and traffic solution that is not currently economically feasible as locating students close to campus. It would also require a policy shift that would go against nearly 30, 40 years of urban planning within the city of Clemson and render and consider the reevaluation of Clemson Next as well as a comprehensive plan. What's the trade-off? I'll get to this next, but an increase in allowable height along College Avenue makes this preservation possible. By allowing density to go up, we can prevent density from spreading out. Height is going to be our escape valve. In closing, before I get to your questions on this and before we move to the next presentation, this is more than just a set of building restrictions. It's a commitment to intentional development. We've spent years in this city listening to the recurring friction points, the loss of our canopy, the disruption of our neighborhoods, and the fear of commercial overreach. This framework replaces those fears with rigorous, predictable standards, and it ensures that while Clemson continues to grow, our most vulnerable neighborhoods, those sitting directly on the edge of our densest corridors, are not lost in the process. And I'm here for any questions you may have.
Commissioner Rice?
Several, but I'll condense it down this evening because we've spoken, or I've kind of said some things that I feel like have gone into this as well. But the biggest thing that comes out of this, if this were to go through, is the number one thing that we continuously hear throughout the city is affordability. This document right here makes that go even further. Just top of my head, of course, I'm not a builder. I would say you add $100,000 to $200,000 to a new build by this document. So that's.
I'm not certain on numbers wise, but as a staff, we are not, and in my conversation with residents, I have not shied away from the fact that an overlay, which inherently suppresses supply, will have an unintended consequence of rising property values. Absolutely. There are real consequences to that in terms of affordability. There are real tax consequences because of that as well. However, we see this as a direct response to what the community has asked us for. In both neighborhoods.
As you mentioned, over the last 5 years with the reassessment that just happened, it's wonderful for the county and city because of the taxes. But again, it does. Over the last 5 years, if you look at the homes more, especially the downtown, these neighborhoods that we're talking about, the prices have skyrocketed. And it's taken it from being affordable to, I would say, probably one or two subsets of the population that can afford to live in those neighborhoods to buy a house today. So you're expanding that reach even further. So I say that for the affordability issue, that we continuously hear from the public, that there's not enough affordable options in town, that this will further that gap, in my opinion.
Commissioner Hyatt?
I do not live in these neighborhoods, so I would just have to go on feedback from the people that do live there. I didn't want to live there for this very reason when I moved to town, and we chose to buy a house not in these neighborhoods. So, I mean, I just have to go off of your meetings when you have feedback with the neighbors and what they want and what they're interested in. So, if this is what the residents want, then that's fine with me.
Commissioner Cumbie.
I don't have any questions. I do live there, but I don't have any further questions.
Any thoughts or?
I'd be interested in more feedback. I know he's met, with a lot of people, and I'd be interested in some more feedback. I've heard a few things, but some positive, some negative. So, I'd be interested in that, whatever the next steps, to see what the feedback is.
Yep, it'd be good for me to give you that breakdown too. In my meetings, it was probably 80, well, I'll actually go higher. It was probably 90-10, 94, 10 against. The 10 that were, what I'm saying, and I didn't meet with 100 people, but I'm saying percentages, but 10% against still voiced all the same concerns. They just didn't want the overlay because it was kind of still dealing with all of these issues, but I don't want you to tell me it was a property rights thing. I don't want you to tell me what I can do with my property. I don't want what's happening around me to continue to happen, but certainly there's a better solution. And we've tried. We're not sure that there is. I'll get more into that in the next presentation, but certainly.
I think the changes from the last, I wasn't at the meeting, but watched, and the changes, I think, helped some of those property rights issues.
Yeah, I do.
Still, I guess I could argue that if you had a property and you bought it one way, thinking you were going to do something with it in the future, that would be a change in mid kind of your plan, kind of to what you were saying, but yeah.
Yep.
I can see the advantages too.
Commissioner Yetter?
I kind of like it. Just from a planning commission standpoint.
Commissioner Crowley?
I understand what you're talking about, curbing everything down there. It seems like there's maybe a better balance between the regulation and the restriction, and maybe that's not saying it right, but so the design standards, I don't see where, okay, if you do a major design, it's got to go before board. People that are, if that pushes the cost of the resale up to a certain point, I don't see how that dissuades investors from buying a property and doing it. They're just going to put it on the sale price. But it may preclude somebody who owns a property from saying, you know what, I want to put this sunroom on the back, but I can't now if it's visible from the road.
But that's gone now. This is all new builds. Yeah, this is just
Only
new homes and new ADUs.
Only new.
Only new, yeah, 100%. I'm happy to go back, but yeah, it's only new.
I just thought that was new construction on the back of your
No,
house.
just new builds. I'm sorry, I need to include builds here, but single family and accessory dwelling units require the approval of the AR. Not your sunroom, not your, it's just a new house, new ADU.
So you could theoretically gut your house down to the studs, rebuild it, and you would not have to get any type of approval.
If you're not pulling a grading and new building permit, this does not apply to you.
So a new building permit, so I wouldn't have had to do it. I just redid all the work in my house. I wouldn't have had to even worry about it.
And let me back up and explain to you guys where this comes from. You're aware of how controversial the things are on College Avenue, because those folks come to you. Inside the neighborhood, those folks come to us. So you are not getting I live here, I paid $750,000 for my house, and I used to have a beautiful forest in front of it, and it was clear cut yesterday, and made 2 lots. and they're building what, right, wrong, or indifferent, I interpret as not nice builds in my brain. We get those calls. We get the construction calls about that. It's the loss of the tree canopy within the neighborhood. So as controversial, and I know I sound like I'm speaking in hyperbole, but as controversial as the things that you guys hear about on College Avenue are, within interdepartmentally, a new home being built within either of these neighborhoods is as controversial. I'm not saying that it's a 1-for-1 call ratio, but when I bought this with this vacant lot next to me, I had no idea it could be built on, and now the trees that I've been staring at for 30 years are gone. It is just as traumatic for those people as some of the things that you're hearing about on College Avenue. So that's where this stems from. And again, we believe, and I think we're fairly accurate, that there's about 26 more opportunities for that to happen. All we're saying is now these residents have continually asked us for a voice in that process. This gives them that voice.
An accessory dwelling unit is going to be a garage apartment.
Garage apartment. You'll remember when I first started, there was one that was very controversial. And it's still very controversial in that neighborhood. And according to this, that would have had to at least go in front of the Board of Architectural Review. We tried at one point, about a year of me being here, we tried to pass that the scale of an ADU had to be within the scale of the house with materials and things like that. For whatever reason, that didn't pass Planning Commission, so it never got a chance to be talked about throughout the public or with City Council. But this would mandate that at least that goes in front of the BAR, which is what the residents, and the one specifically that I'm talking about, and there are others, requested at the time.
See, that's the hard, like, I understand exactly what people are saying about, like, these trees, but that's somebody else's property you've been staring at. Like, so I completely understand, like, but I understand that you bought it, it was there, and like with the ADUs, like, having to have somebody else approve the design on your property and having that imposed, like you said, now that would be a new construction. So even if I've lived there 30 years, I decide, you know what, I want to do one, now it's got to get approved.
Yep.
That's where I'm having a tough time, because that to me is not. I understand the commercial invasion part of that, if that's going to be what it's going to be.
Yep.
I don't know. It's like the site stuff I like, and I think a lot of it. I did have one. The one I was going to ask, that was number 6 in here. It says all developed or major modifications to existing development. Well, but then it says will require the construction of sidewalks and any streetscape provided or prescribed. So that would seem like if you did a major remodel, that you would have to.
Are you looking at
He's
the
looking at.
I'm looking at the ordinance.
Packet.
Sorry.
This has changed.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's not good anymore.
Yeah.
That's not good anymore.
Yep.
He has had hours and hours and hours, is what I just heard, of talking to
I'm
people
sorry
and
about that. Yeah.
updating, and we do not have that, how the ordinance would read. It would only be those 2 things, 2 points, 2 requirements that he had in his slide that would compose of that ordinance.
So, John, I'm sorry, you're literally watching sausage be made, and that's what's happening.
So which, just so I,
Just the go to, flip the page 12 and 13 in that.
okay.
Yep.
That's it.
While he's looking through that, I will tell you that I've spoke to some residents of that area, 3 to be exact. All 3 of them said the same exact thing, that they would not be in favor of a government-run homeowners association.
I think that's a fair criticism. I can say, and not as a zinger to you at all, because you know I love you. At least one of those residents called repeatedly about a site built on near them. So that's where, we may wind up, I really may wind up in front of you guys and say, hey, we swung and this was a miss, but this is what we're hearing from, this is what we're dealing with in the department. And I may wind up with you guys and say, hey, we're hearing this from the residents, we're hearing this from other residents, they can't agree, so we're not gonna do anything. And that may be literally where we wind up. And that, my opinion aside, maybe where we wind up. We just can't catch a pulse on folks. And, you know, we'll send out the mailers, we know who will show up, we know who will talk. Is that indicative of everyone? Sometimes, sometimes not. I think we'll get more in this instance because it affects actual home sites, absolutely. But yeah, it's been a challenge to pin where folks are on this because, and I'm not speaking to this specific person either, because now I'm thinking about someone else in my brain, I promise, but like you get a lot of this, like I want to be able to tell other people what to do with their property, but don't tell me what I can do with mine. And there's a lot of that in Clemson. And so who's stuck in the middle of that? Planning Commission, City Council, and planning staff. And that's where we keep getting stuck, is it's like, I get it. I think this is appropriate for everywhere? No, I think we've shown that. But like, we keep hearing from the residents of both of these neighborhoods. And a lot of times too, like the strong property rights folks, they don't show up at our planning commission meetings and advocate for property rights because that's not what everyone else is here doing. And they run the risk of alienating themselves from their entire street. And so that's why the one-on-one meetings have been effective, because I feel like people have been, these meetings, like I've joked with some of you, you know, God help me, some of these have been 2.5 hours, some of them have been 30 minutes, but like, I feel like folks have been a little bit more honest in that setting. But this is not, this prescription is not based on these recent talks. This is based, I mean, I've been here almost 3 years, but Jacob's been here a lot longer. This has been building, I will argue, for 40. But this is our best stab right now.
Yep. And I'm certainly being objective with it as well. And again, we're all residents of this city, so we try to take out our personal bias as much as we can to where we're looking out for the benefit and the planning and the success of the entire city and all of its residents and what we sit up here to do. So if at the end of the day, you know, if the majority of the residents, this is something that they want, and I think we have a responsibility to listen to them.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think getting more input and doing everything we can. If we do everything we possibly can to send out the information, and it's the same 30 or 40 people that you've spoken to are the only ones that come out and let us know the feedback, then that's what we have to go by.
So the 3 people that you've spoken with that are not in favor of it, have they reached out to Nathan to discuss with Nathan?
I have instructed them to do so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
and I'm not asking you to reveal anybody, because I'm not going to reveal to you guys who I talked to.
That's right. Yeah.
But
well, I just want to make sure that people give feedback to you, so they can give feedback to us, but they also need to give feedback to you.
I will say this too. What was very eye-opening in all this is it's a sliding scale of like, I talk to people who if you're on this commission right now, you have heard vehemently against certain types of development. And when you get them in a room and you're asking them like, oh, well, this happened, well, it's not that bad now. But you guys never get that follow-up. You get the rage on the beginning. And warranted rage. I'm not saying that they were wrong for that opinion at the time period, but things change over time. I'll remind you how quickly things change in the next presentation, but you know there was a time period in town where the Shepherd Hotel was the most controversial build in the region, and then now we all go eat lunch there and have talk to our business associates. But like that's I don't want to say, it's quick, sometimes it's fascinating in these meetings, because a lot of the people I talk to have been at recent meetings against things. It's been fascinating to see how short memories are, and then also how, I don't know a better phrase to say, like, what hills certain people choose to die on. Like, this is my line in the sand, I don't want this, but I'll accept this, or I won't, So that's been fascinating.
And if I want to provide feedback on your property, then I have to accept that somebody is gonna have to provide feedback on my property.
100,000%.
So,
And that's tough to stomach. I mean, it would be for me where I live. So yes, I get that.
because it's easy to say, well, those trees weren't yours anyway, when that's what they're looking at. But then we're trying to protect trees for, I mean, I get it. But those are the same people that want this but don't want this, so, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll say that anyone that reaches out to you, please send them my way. That's literally what we've been doing, is trying to gather feedback. But I also want to say this, and I'm going to get into this much more in the next presentation. These kind of things, these policy decisions, this is what a planning commission does. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You are not supposed to be constantly what you just did. That's not the process of how this is supposed to work. I've worked other places, I can say that with full confidence. Seeing a new development, or 10, every time we come to this commission, is not what a planning commission, or a city council for that matter, is supposed to be doing.
The only thing that I would say about this is, y'all know I live in one of those areas. What I'm hearing him say is, for existing residents, remodels, things like that, even if it would have met it or not met it or whatever, don't have to go through this. You still have to have those, but if there are issues on a site with a tree, you will have the option, I believe, to plant it back.
Yeah.
If it can't be built there. And so, if this is what my neighbors want, which it is, it's really not that much compared to what we had in the very beginning. In the very beginning, it was really tight. And so, speaking to affordability, what I see on the other side, because I totally agree with you, is unaffordable in those neighborhoods, okay? What I see is that the speculative buyers who are gonna come in here and buy certain houses, they're not gonna just tear one down without a whole lot of thought to make a game day in here to do that. And so I see it protecting the character of having more neighbors. I mean, every time a house goes for sale near us, I'm just wondering, am I gonna have a neighbor, or am I gonna have weekend neighbors? I prefer to have neighbors. I like riding down Shorecrest and seeing Benji out there cutting the grass. The only thing that'd be better is if I rode down by my house and he was cutting mine. That'd be the only, no, I do like that.
Well, you bring up a good point too. I think that's another difficult portion that we're having as part of gathering feedback, is there are whole swaths of both of these neighborhoods that are game day rentals or student rentals. You know, there are folks in the crowd that are gonna argue with me about that reality tonight, but that we manage rental housing program, we know. So those, they'll get the letter, they'll have the opportunity to speak, but you know, they may live in Montana for all I know. So there's definitely some of that going on.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, so the site management stuff is, like, that's the kind of stuff that I can say, like, okay, we agree here, we see what kind of development we're going on, this is the type of stuff in there. It's the design stuff, like, in the conversations you've had with people, and I'm wanting the Board of Architects review, hey, that's a good in-between. They understand that the Board of Architects review cannot deny that person the ability to build a home or to build an ADU that's allowed. They will simply, like, if somebody's gonna build an ADU that's gonna block my view, the Board of Architects review can't tell them, nope, you can't build it. They'll just have to look different.
Yeah, they understand that.
Okay.
After talking to me, they understand that. No, they might come in wanting something else, but yeah, they.
Because that's like, that's the kind of thing, is that, that's what I mean, is that extra step on projects like that doesn't necessarily prevent anything that we've talked about preventing. It's just make it look different in the end, which is fine in certain situations. It's just that,
But couldn't
again, it's the government HOA type thing.
But couldn't they tell them it needs to be back farther?
As long as they
or-
meet the regular, they can't change the setbacks and stuff, can they? Unless we write that in.
Well, no, I'm saying when it goes before the Board of Architectural Review, obviously they have something to say about the exterior of the building, but can they say anything about the placement of the building on the property?
Depends on how the ordinance is written.
Yeah, it depends on what you guys.
Because there's
decide.
different shape properties, mine being one of them, and
Certainly.
there's something that would be allowed on one property that may not be allowed on the other, based on the topography or shape of the property.
And we'll get into more on that in the next presentation. I'm sorry to keep referencing it, but that is the crux of the issue, is the ambiguity is what bothers everyone right now. And does this alleviate that? Not wholesale, but it takes away some, but there's an extra step, is what we've heard. There is a mentality of, not wholesale either, but handfuls of folks that I talk to consider some of the new builds within both of these neighborhoods to not be of the same character or stature of the old builds in these neighborhoods. And they would like to have a say in the materials and design of those. Right, wrong, or indifferent.
I understand that, but that's what I mean, is like, I think that's the important discussion is, people that move there without there being an HOA and understood that, and granted at the time it may not have been an issue, this won't be a problem, and now it is.
I will say this, I think that in the beginning with what we started with, HOA is a fair criticism. I will say what we've moved to, there are hundreds of neighborhoods throughout the upstate under an architectural district.
Oh, 100% agree, 100% agree.
And so most of those, if you think around, and I hate the comparison because it's not always accurate, but downtown Greenville, all the surrounding neighborhoods, architectural district, there are more historic neighborhoods. What's happened throughout the history of Clemson is, now some still exist, but we've lost the ability to gain any historical designation because the houses have changed so much over time. So you can't place that, we can't do like a historic zoning district necessarily. Architectural district though is possible.
Okay, that was good.
Yeah.
I was working there eventually, is that was kind of a secondary goal, or maybe
And I've had that
primary
argument,
goal. This
yeah.
is that this is gonna be a preservation and an architect, this is what we want downtown to look like.
Essentially, it accomplishes both without the other designation, but that is the argument I've had. It's like, oh no, my house is historic. I'm like, well, yes, it is, but it's not. And so I've had that conversation probably 10 times in my office recently.
All right, and another one for the site standards will be the frontage being the average of the two adjacent lots. Is that any different than the current standard? Isn't the current standard 100 foot at the building line if you're in R20?
Yeah, it'd be different because if the adjacent lots are drastically different from that, then it would change it.
Yeah, some lots are bigger than 100. So you would render some, it would render a few lots unbuildable, absolutely.
Unbuildable or unsubdividable?
Unsubdivided.
Undividable, I'm sorry, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Let's move on to the next one, because the next one's gonna, if you had fun with this one, you're gonna have a lot of fun with the next one.
We don't have a handout for the next one.
You'll get one in just a second.
so is this still good, or is this?
Toss it for now, yep.
Okay. Can you just pass them down?
Yeah, it'll be fine. There'll be extras.
Take a trip.
Hey, we've We're calling this The Evolution of Height in Clemson, Context, Conflict, and Clarity. Subtitle is Navigating the Complexity of Our Vertical Future. I want to start with, in discussing the evolution of building heights in Clemson, what a lot of tonight's going to be is a history lesson. Our goal is to move from a state of conflict to a state of clarity. We need to understand how we got here to decide where we're going to go. But right out of the gate, I'm going to acknowledge that Clemson's relationship with height is complicated. Clemson House, while not in the city of Clemson, was a 7-story building with a 2-story penthouse set on top of a hill, adjacent to a downtown neighborhood with minimal buffering. When constructed in the late 1940s and early 50s, it required the demolition of at least 5 downtown homes and an existing hotel to make way for its construction. So context. Let's establish the context of our current zoning landscape of 2026. General Commercial C has existed since our zoning code in the 1970s. This prescribed maximum height in C is 65 feet. I'll show you a boundary in a second. An adjacent PD to the C district is 114 Earl. Here's a map of that. You can see 114 Earl in the back. The dark red is our C district. For a long time, nothing approached the 65-foot limit in Clemson, other than the Clemson House. CM is a reflection of the city's strategic plan for development along College Avenue within walking distance to the university, allowing mixed use and density to accommodate growth. For rapidly urbanizing areas such as Clemson, smart growth principles equate density with building height. Comprehensive plans for Clemson completed in both 2014 and 2019 by former planning commissions and councils encourage compact vertical development. You can see the boundary there. CM came about in August of 2014. It was designed to create a vibrant, walkable core where uses are mixed vertically, and 65 is the limit here. There are 4 adjacent PDs, Sunset at Valley Walk, Moda, the Hub, and then 398, which is now called the Rambler.
What is Sunset at Valley Walk?
It's the one behind the park.
Yeah, the one behind the park.
Great.
Mm-hmm. It's a nice looking building.
Down toward the SO Club.
Yep. Okay, so there's the CM district. You'll see it runs along 93 and up the rest of College. So conflict. The development wave of 2015 to 2017, we got Campus View by right at 80 feet tall, Youth Center in 2017 at 75 feet tall, and the Earl in 2017 and 95 feet tall at its highest point. All of these projects brought the 65-foot limit into reality because of the way we measure buildings. And with that, a new level of public scrutiny. We have 114 Earl, pictured here, Campus View here, and the tall heights that I referenced just now are basically in the back against the neighborhood. And Youth Center here, although Campus View is not a PD. These projects fundamentally change the visual scale of downtown Clemson, leading to the public pushback we see today. So understanding oppositions. Those against development often cite the loss of old Clemson, and while height is the visible target, the real underlying issue is student housing saturation in the downtown core. Height has become the scapegoat or boogeyman used to try and slow development down, and understandably, people were frustrated by student growth, and attacking height was the easiest and most low-hanging fruit to stop it. The Bixby plan submission was November 2020. It was CO'd in November 2022. 2021, I'm going to read this. Council passed a text amendment intended to provide a path for allowing some residential development in the commercial districts while multiple catalyst areas are being studied and standards are established. We lowered the maximum building height for structures in this area from 65 feet to 3 stories. The ordinance changed the way height was calculated from feet to stories and further changed the way a building's stories calculated. That was poorly written, sorry. A recording of this meeting shows that the height limitations were meant to last 180 days. That height, and basically until we finish Clemson next. That height reduction was never removed and remains in place today. So enter the PD. This was meant to give us more control, moving away from arbitrary caps and towards site-specific evaluation. Clemson Next recommends using the plan development process for all multifamily projects and to allow for no negotiation and public benefits. Yet this has resulted in even taller structures. MODA is actually shorter, but it was controversial. If you guys remember, then we have the Hub and the Rambler at their tallest point. So the problems, we have a mismatch. Our comprehensive plan calls for vertical density, but our zoning code only allows 3 stories. Because 3 stories don't provide a return on investment due to high land costs, developers are forced into the PD process just to gain the height they need to make a project viable. So it exists as a workaround. The problems continued. We have some of the highest impact fees in the state. That has not slowed development. We've changed personnel on council and the commissions. Elections have not worked. That has not slowed development. And we have a new administrator, planning director. Tanya said this before in front of you. We have staff turnover. That has not slowed development. More problems. This is from Clemson Next. This quote is, simply shutting down development doesn't work. It just pushes it outside the city borders, increasing traffic and congestion. Instead, we are left with unsystematic growth characterized by inconsistent buffers, inconsistent step backs, inconsistent parking, as this planning commission and the city council attempt to do the job of the Board of Architectural Review. Another set of problems. Ambiguity is the enemy. It creates anxiety for citizens, developers, and staff. This leads to misinformation and conspiracy theories where all these parties assume that the other doesn't know what they're doing. And the last problem is anger. Everyone's mad, so that's the end result. Now let's talk about clarity and a path forward. The solution is not just saying no to height. It's using height where appropriate. We allow verticality in the core downtown so that we can strictly protect the downtown residential neighborhoods from commercial overreach and preserve land throughout the city. We see this as a three-pronged approach. Implement the neighborhood protection overlay to prevent commercial encroachment, and then codify requirements for heights, buffers, parking spaces, implementation of the downtown streetscape, and architectural step backs over 3 stories against residential into our zoning code to get out of the PD process. Then the third is to allow vertical density and exit the planned development cycle. Next time I'm going to have a map of all this, but I'm going to go through it right now. This will be the most controversial portion of my presentation, likely. What we propose is to preserve College Avenue from 93 to Key Street at 2 stories. The reason it's 2 and not 1 is because TDs and triple Ts are both already 2 stories. The majority of those buildings currently are 1 story, however. Skipping down the street, we cap Strode to Strode at 3 stories, but allow for 5 for urban design purposes. I'll explain what allow means in a couple slides. I say urban design purposes because 400 College is going to be 5 stories, MODA is 5 stories. We would like, as some of the worst kept secrets in town are that some of these properties can be developed. So we would like to maintain that 5-story there. And then from Earl Street, other than that section, to 123 and along 93, we cap at 5 stories but allow for 7 stories. And then in 3 very, very unique sites where several stories would be below grade, we allow for even greater height. And when I say that, I mean these specific sites We would allow that additional height if they can meet very specific conditions like obtaining access to roads they do not currently have access to. The obvious questions are, how many more builds are possible on College Avenue? We believe there are 7 opportunities left for PDs on College Avenue, 4 with a very high probability of winding up in front of you, 2 with a mild probability, and 1 with a very low probability. Another question is, what does 7 stories also help us with? I receive calls all the time from hotel developers who would like to locate along College Avenue. They want 7 stories, but they are unwilling to enter our planned development process. Folks all throughout town have said they would like other uses than student housing along College Avenue. A hotel is one of those, and this opens that door. And then finally, 7, as Brian can speak to this, but we've heard it from developers in the past, 7 is a natural breaking point in wood construction and 5 wood stories over 2 concrete parking decks. That said, and I know I'm gonna get slapped for this, but I don't believe if we set the height at 20 tomorrow, we're gonna get a lot of 20 or 17-story buildings. I think we're still gonna see a lot of 7-story buildings. If you think about the planned developments that have come before us in recent past, most of them are seeking 7 stories. So, how do we get there? Development bonus. A development bonus for additional height in the CM district in exchange for voluntary contributions to the city's, I'm sorry, should change this slide, to the city's community development fund. To receive the development bonus, this creates both a base and by right entitlements. So you contribute to the Community Action Fund, $10 contribution per square foot of bonus area. So using the example of Moda, it's 68,000 square feet per floor. We set the height, like I said, would be set at a maximum of 3 stories. Then to gain the additional 2 floors, the formula looks like $10 times 68,000 times 2, which would net 1.36 to the city's development fund. We want to move away from the planned development cycle and the endless negotiation and instead propose by right entitlements, which means, through this development bonus, which means that if a project met those standards, it would be built, can be built. And if they want additional height, they must pay through it through voluntary contributions. This is meant to be clean, simple, and uniform. It reduces ambiguity and creates clarity. So then, other questions. Will every developer take advantage of this? We don't know. Could it drive away development and create shorter buildings? Perhaps. And that's exactly what the public's asked for. This technique is common to other jurisdictions using strategies to combat growth. So conclusion and a cohesive path forward. We need to move past the emotional debate of height and focus on results, which would be a protected neighborhood, a vibrant downtown, and sustainable growth path for Clemson. We can do nothing and remain in the same cycle we're in. We must choose intentionality over reaction and try to replace the ambiguity with a solid regulatory framework. By protecting neighborhoods with the NC1 overlay and while allowing for building heights more in line with what we're seeing in demand, we can enhance the downtown vibrancy through smart planning. And I'll just say it like this. We've reached the point where anger and conspiracy theories have filled the void that is left by our outdated zoning code. It's the best way I think I can say that. We're going to enter in a season where we're reworking that. By adopting this framework, we can kill the boogeyman of height and replace it with intentionality, buffers, and codified community benefits. This strategy will help us preserve land, not only in these neighborhoods, but throughout the city, which is a precious commodity across our 8 square miles. By going up, we're not going out. Let's move Clemson forward with a plan that protects our neighborhoods and in actuality and gives a plan for downtown that's not just a theory. And I am open for all the questions you have.
Mr. Cummings.
I don't have any questions. questions at this time. I'm in favor of something that would get us out of this cycle. So I like the intention here.
So I will say this, I should have said this in the presentation. I didn't shy away from any of this when I was talking to residents about the neighborhood overlay protection. Do they love the idea of 7 stories, the possibility of 7 stories? Absolutely not. But they don't love the idea of 5 stories either. If we do see instances, it's been said online, hey, just remove the PD ability. There are instances, and folks will argue with me, where the PD is still appropriate. 398 College was one of those instances. Patrick Square is an instance. Like there are good PDs. I'm not saying all PDs are bad. I'm saying every project that goes before you should not be a PD. And so when I said, 7, it's like, I don't love that, but at least all it can be is 7. It can't be 10. So what I'm trying to remove is anxiety about uncertainty, because I don't envy any of you guys, because Jacob and I we operate within a code, and whatever that code says, we have to do. But you guys and council are proposed with all kinds of stuff, and sometimes I completely understand in your brain 9 stories makes sense, and then sometimes it needs to be 3, and then it gets even more frustrating for you, I'm sure, when we're talking about the step downs towards neighborhoods, because in recent past we've approved 5 and we've denied 5. What I'm saying is, for everyone, I want to give certainty. Developers, citizens, and you guys are stuck in the middle with us. So put this in code. I'm asking you, and we can debate this for months if we want to. But if we put this in code, then we can move out of that cycle, which I don't think that cycle is good for anyone, because at the end of the day, what that cycle has done is it rips our community apart with every single one of these developments. And you guys have people, if you don't, you will, that don't speak to you anymore because you're on the planning commission. And I get dirty looks at Publix, and I don't care because that's what I'm paid to do, but we don't have to live this way anymore. And that's kind of what Jacob and I have been thinking about forever. This didn't come out of the blue. We've been chewing on this for a long time. And I did get a ton of residential feedback during the process. And I will say that was the overwhelming majority. Was like, hey, do I love 7 stories? No, but I would love knowing that it can't be any more.
Well, and so it was 65 feet for a long time prior to that change.
For a long time, but how we measured the feet was weird and super complicated. But what would happen is that, from a certain point, it is 65, but then in the back, think about the back of Earl Street. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's probably 94.
Yeah, it's about 90, 95 feet.
So right up against the neighborhood, and it's due to topography. How we measured it was weird.
Right.
Yeah.
An example would be how U Center, how there's kind of like the up-risen plazas, and then it steps down. You measure it from the plaza at the shortest point, so it's 65 feet right there, but then when you're down at the lower end of there, you're up at 80 feet.
Yeah. So that's how Campus View came as not a PD, and then the Bixby is not a PD, although most people think it's a PD. It had met certain criteria that allowed it to be the 6 stories that it is in the back, and Tanya and I were talking today. That was the catalyst for a lot of uproar over height. And then we were entering that Clemson Next process, and we lowered it to 3. And at the time, I understand. I get why we did it. But there was a sunset expressed in the meetings repeatedly. We just never took it off because these things became so controversial. And what that artificial suppression of height has done is got us in this cycle.
On page 24, it says voluntary contributions, the development bonus. They're volunteering to contribute in order to get something in return.
Yep.
It's a mandatory voluntary contribution.
Sure.
Okay. And then,
if you want additional storage, or square footage, you are volunteering
to
money towards that.
contribute
Yep.
in exchange for that. And
Other
then,
municipalities do that, though, correct?
Yeah, this is typical language. This is not something Nathan made up. Yep.
and then, did you, we said, or this document said 3 stories next to neighborhoods? Is that 3? Because didn't we do 2 for MODA?
Again, depending on how you measure it though.
It's 3, but it's technically not 3, because there's about a 12-foot before you get to the actual building, and then it's 3 from there.
So we'll clarify that throughout. I mean, there's a lot, like, what I'm giving you tonight is a broad overview. What you'll eventually vote on will be 25 pages of technicalities, technical zoning stuff. But yes.
So it's more going to be the height of a townhome next to the neighborhood.
3 stories, sure.
In that zone. Meaning, in the overlay that he's gonna give you, like he already told you, along Strode or from Earl up to 93 and where it's gonna be. So it's gonna be very specific.
Right.
The word that I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's really going to designate where this goes instead of tons of things being assembled. You can't assemble part of this one over here to do it. It's gonna eliminate it in those areas.
Yeah. I think like, and that's why I say they kind of go hand in hand. You're protecting the neighborhoods, it can't be proposed there. I am concerned, and I know there are folks in this room that will push back that, you know, just stop it on College Avenue. And that's not a solution. We've hired consultant after consultant after consultant to tell us that's not a solution, and we keep banging our head against the wall thinking that we can get there. We have surrounding municipalities that will absolutely incentivize development if we say no. I don't think we have to turn the faucet on and allow every student housing room in the country to come to downtown Clemson. But I think if you don't leave the drip on at some point, then it is going to filter out around you. And you cut off that supply, it will filter in further into neighborhoods that we're not even talking about yet. And your quality of life will tank at that point. That is what keeps Jacob and Art up at night. Because we've already talked about it. We hear from 2 neighborhoods now. And we think we have a solution to alleviate some of that. Our fear is that if we don't allow it somewhere in the specific place that it's been recommended since our first comp plans, then it spreads everywhere. The university is growing at 2% a year. They are not shy about that.
My job gets super easy if we just say we're not doing any more development. Unfortunately, your guys' quality of life with traffic, taxes, tanks.
And I think that's what keeps me up at night. I'll say this, there are neighborhoods, and people laugh at me when I'm like, one day students will infiltrate that neighborhood. There are neighborhoods all over Clemson. Some of you live in them. That I don't want these type of things happen. Now, our rental housing ordinance protects some of that, sure. But I've told you all, there is money out there that I never dreamed that could be spent in neighborhoods that is being spent in Clemson today to purchase homes for students and to preserve a lot of neighborhoods around here. We think we have to leave that faucet dripping.
I like both plans, ideas. I look forward to the details.
Just two things I have. Instead of doing stories, could we do just height, come up with the average height and say it's, you know, this height from the tallest spot of the building?
I would really suggest against that.
Okay, all right.
Just for
That's fine.
a lot of reasons,
Okay.
mostly design reasons.
Okay,
For
all right.
the earth.
We run into that all the time in the commercial aspect of it because of the grades around here. It's just difficult, and you just put yourself in a lot of ambiguity.
So like
It makes for awkward design of a physical building. It makes for a much better architectural if we just go by straight stories.
398 is a great example.
Yeah.
Like, I know people aren't happy about the height. There are parts of that site that would look ridiculous with what's allowed by right on that site. And in fact, I've had a ton of pushback against this, but that would, we're confident, no one believes this, we're confident the buy ride option there would have created much more headaches for the neighborhood behind it than what will go there eventually.
And then my last thing is that I know this was just an example about the $10 $10 a square foot. Would it be unusual to say bump that to $20 or $30 a square foot?
So what we're balancing, so Greenville's is $2, I mean, basically $2.50, they have two prongs, so they're just $5. We doubled it, it's 10, because I think we can get it, yes, I think we can get it. I do think there's a threshold where, like this example here, do I think we could get $1.3 million there? Yes. Tanya and I had this conversation today, I plugged in a lot of other stuff. Do I think I can get 15? Sometimes. What I don't want to do is set an amount that you or council or that we're constantly going back and forth with, because there is a threshold where it becomes, oh, I'm not going to build there, I'll just go central and drive in, and we don't. That's what we don't want.
Yeah, that's why I asked if that's so.
That's the thought process there, and I don't know. It's not perfect, like you know, but I also want to stress. Talk to my city administrator today, like this voluntary contribution is on top of the impact fees that are already there. It's on top of, and think about the things that I just listed here, sorry. We negotiated in recent developments, installation of the downtown streetscape plan. You'd be required by this. We'll set the parking spaces at a lot. I have enjoyed, no, I'm not supposed to say this, but I have enjoyed the 201 Pine folks' presentations in front of you, because she dipped below the 0.5 parking space and then came back to you guys and said, we don't think we can market it at that. So we're somewhere in that range, but she got down to as low as say 0.43 and then came back to you and said that's not feasible. So we know we can put the required parking spaces in there. We'll mandate the buffers that we negotiate during this process, and and then the height is what it is. Mandate the step backs, and then unless you guys can come up with stuff, and I'm sure we can, I don't know what's left to negotiate, and that's what I want to get doing. And the other thing, and I sound super arrogant when I say this, but I said it to Tanya today, so I'm going to say it in front of all of you, is we're in this code all day long. You know, Tanya has said it, so I'm saying it. She's a physical therapist. Brian builds. Herb does what Herb does. You're not thinking about it constantly. You're thinking about it once a month, and then it comes back to you completely changed the next month, and then you're looking at it again, and then much worse counsel. So you're not equipped to, especially at the volume we're seeing it at, and I wouldn't expect you to be. And so that's why we want to take some of that pressure off you guys too. I mean, quite honestly, you know, for the longest time before I got here, we couldn't get anyone to want to be on the planning commission, and then all of a sudden we got a lot of folks that want to be on there sometimes, and depending on the cycle. But I wouldn't wish it on anybody. So,
well, what I would say is I look forward to seeing what's next. Will we have an actionable item?
Not at the next meeting on this. There'll be a lot more detail for this one. I want to hold. I said this in front of council last night. 2026 for me is foot on the gas. I want to hold public hearing for the overlay in February, and then vote yay or nay in March. I see this coming a month after that in April. And then we're going to roll right in to a rewrite of the zoning code. And it's going to be long and painful, and everyone's going to be mad. But at the end of it, everybody, I think, will have a lot more comfort.
And the whole idea is to make it navigatable and to allow us to do what we're supposed to do about state statute and discuss some of these other things. I like it. I'm for both of them. I think you've done a great job. I appreciate the staff spending as many hours. I know this is hours and hours and change, because you can look at what we got in our packet versus where we are now, and we appreciate it. And I want everybody to remember, part of the state law says that the resources council will not reasonably deny from requests from planning commission. And that's why we have somebody with Nathan's education and Jacob and Art doing this and relying on them and the tenets of urban planning, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sir?
So, yes.
Go ahead, if you're gonna go, yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
I'm here.
there's just a couple of things. So there's the stuff in here that's, if it fronts on College Avenue, they're required to do the stuff. Is there anything preventing somebody, so I've got the Strode, because we've mentioned that pull up, that corner lot, Strode and College Avenue, if somebody puts a building there, could they not just say the address was on Strode and then not have to install the streetscape? Would that be something we need to look into?
No, it would make your
The
address
property
be
front on.
front college, yeah.
College, yeah.
So they can't do that. It'd be your 9/11 addressing, which is what Art's in charge of, so they couldn't do
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't really
No,
matter.
no option to
If the
change
property is on College, it's gonna have to do the streetscape.
Okay. Just
I'm sure
wanted,
I'm sure someone will try, but no, they won't.
why is it, I mean, some
Yeah.
residential may be
The address
different.
is not necessarily tied to the address, 911 addressing is based on access, where you access in, and so how those,
Okay.
the frontage is a different issue.
Okay, gotcha. And then just, since we had, the height thing, I know me, you talked a little bit about it after, the last meeting for a minute, but is there a reason we're not just looking at like density per acre in some form or fashion as a rule instead of a height limitation to provide for some of these irregular lots or something, and just say, okay, here's what you can put. If you want to put more than that, up to this percentage of density, then you have to pay the bonus. But that way you don't have to, you know, if somebody can only get X amount of lots down there, or else they can't do that, then they can maybe come up with something a little bit smaller but taller to compensate for the density.
I'm gonna let my staff talker and the developers squirm. The short answer is, the plan for decades has been student beds on College Avenue, and we need the beds.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is put a density limit, not a height, instead of a height, so whatever you would,
Whatever height you want.
Yeah, no,
Okay. I just didn't know if that had been considered, like, if you could do, you know, if you pick a density, and,
yeah.
you know, however many, you know, 300 per acre or 150 per acre, and if you go 150% of that, then you get to pay X instead of height, if that would alleviate, because especially with the topography and the measuring and the this and the that and the other, you don't have people say, well, it's 7, but it's 5 because the front door's over here and not over here, and it just eliminates all of that. I'm just, I mean,
No.
that's not a hard, I'm just curious.
It's a good question, and it'll come up again, likely at council. I'll go on record that we need to maximize beds downtown, maximize density downtown. So, under the story, whatever it is, if it's 5, 6, or 7, I'm not.
They can put as many beds
put
as
as
they
many beds
can.
want to, and it won't be enough.
It seems less ambiguous to do stories than it is to do
Yeah.
regular.
And
So
most
whatever the
people-
economy allows, basically, at the moment that they're building it.
That's, okay, I mean, that's,
Most people understand stories, they're not gonna understand the other part of it.
Not necessarily that, but you have to set it. I mean, we'd have to set the,
well, we have it for every other development. I mean, number of houses per acre, number of townhouses per acre, duplexes, everything like that. I was just curious as to why that wasn't.
Yeah,
It'd be difficult, and I think Brian's right.
If it's- I mean,
What
if
I
this is easier,
want,
worse is fine.
what I want is, I want this to be, Andy and I talked at length about this today, because I had to make sure I could say some of the stuff I said. I want this to be as simplistic and as uniform as possible. Like, I want, you know, whether it's someone developing a piece of property, I want them to be able to, one sheet in our zoning code, this is what I can do. I want a resident to be able to do that, and I want Jacob to be able to do that. So there's no ambiguity of all this back and forth anymore. It's like, this is what it is. And I think the ambiguity here is gonna be, I've got 3, do I wanna go 4 or 5? Type thing. Yeah, and so that's, I'm sure this will be debated ad nauseum in the public sphere, but we see that what we think we have created, and you guys can argue against, and I welcome all your emails and expect them. What we're trying to create is the simplest path forward.
Anybody
This
else?
is so much information. thanks for moving some of the things to another night.
Speaking of, do we have any staff reports?
The comprehensive plan public hearing was last night, went well. That's all.
At this minute, I would expect that we'll be submitting the paperwork for first reading at the next meeting.
I believe we have something at the first meeting in February, but so I think the first reading is the 12th of February, if I'm not mistaken. Yep.
Any other items?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Second?
No.
Quick on the gun there.
Yep.
Go ahead.